Hi there, the name's Nico, and today I'll be going over my tier list for the augments. Augments just came out a few days ago, and many of them will probably be changed because some of them are really strong and others are really weak. But regardless, let's go over the augments. Please note, augments will be judged based on the best character they can be used on, as some augments may be great on one character but bad on another. Also, I will be focusing more on Solo's Eternal Return, as most, if not all, of the support augments are better in team modes. The first augment we'll look at is Frailty Infliction. This augment is honestly pretty underwhelming at this point. It would be a good augment if the numbers were better. At level 10, you do 100 true damage and reduce the enemy's armor by 6% for 4 seconds every 30 seconds. Stopping power reduces the enemy's armor by 3% the whole time, and it is a sub-augment, not a core augment. This augment will be going in B tier. The next augment is Frenzy. Frenzy is honestly insane on some of the cast. If you're playing a Rapier character, Assault Rifle character, 11, or Heart, this is a great augment to have. It is hard to say if the characters that use Frenzy really well are doing well because of Frenzy, or because the characters themselves are good. But I will have to place this augment in S tier. The next augment is Vampiric Bloodline. If your character really only uses spells to do damage, such as Lennox, Sahir, or Cicella, then this core augment is insane. This augment allows you to get up to 20% Omni Siphon and Spell Amp at max stacks. Getting 4 stacks for spell-focused characters is really easy. As a Lennox main, it probably takes like 3 seconds to get max stacks up. This augment does not go on cooldown unless you don't hit a spell for 8 seconds, which means you pretty much will have Vampiric Bloodline the entire fight. The augment is definitely an S tier augment. The first augment we'll look at is Stopping Power. This augment can be used on everyone, but its stats are not that great. 3% armor penetration the whole game does not translate to a lot of bonus damage. The red augment tree has a lot of good sub-augments, so it's best if you use another one. This augment is in B tier. Next is Dismantle Goliath. This augment is not that bad if you're playing a squishy character. This augment you generally want to use on ranged squishy characters because melees will have better HP scaling and won't get as much benefit as ranged characters. Example characters that this is good on would be Rio, Rosie, and Heart. I would say this augment is an S tier. The next augment is Vengeance. This augment is not a bad augment to have if you reliably make it to the final zone or are a late game character such as Nadine, Isol, and Shukai. 10% damage the whole time is really nice to have. I place this augment in A tier. Spirit Culling is next. This augment is one of the only augments you can solve in-game. You gain 10% SP back from damage dealt, so if you do 100 damage, you get 10 SP. You can just make a bunch of SP drinks if you're having SP problems, but for characters that have a lot of SP issues such as Emma and Shoichi, this is not a bad augment to take. But the value of this augment drops off as the characters that use this augment are generally spellcasters, so once you transition to Glacial Shoes and Bracelet of Scotty, this augment doesn't mean as much. This augment is in B tier. Quench is the last of the Red Tree or Havoc augments. This augment is definitely S tier. If you're not running this augment on every character that uses the Havoc tree, what are you doing? You not only get 25% more damage to animals, Alpha, Omega, and Wiccaline, but you also get 20% Omni Siphon on animals. This makes characters with bad animal clear like Shoichi, Alex, and Lennox good animal clears, and characters with great animal clear such as Bernice and Sane. This augment is a must-have on every character. The next augment tree is the Fortification or Blue Tree. The first core augment from here is Diamond Shard. This augment can be pretty good on some characters like Kiara or Yuki. This augment relies on you having good synergy with immobilization spells, otherwise it's not that great. As an example, with Kiara, you can use your E to root and then ult to keep your opponent in your ult for longer to do more damage. This is an A tier augment. Ironclad is next. Ironclad seems good based on its numbers, but in reality there are better augments you can run that do basically the same thing without needing to use your weapon skill. I do not know who would want Ironclad over the next augment we'll be talking about, which is why this is going in B tier. The next augment is Oblivion Can Wait. This augment is broken and is currently the best augment in the game. This augment counters over half the characters in the game. How the damage formula works, you are often reflecting back more damage than you are receiving from your opponent, and there is no cooldown for this augment. This core augment is the best in slot for most of the cast at this time and really needs a hotfix. Embolden is the first augment in the Blue Tree. This augment is probably one of the only balanced augments. If you have a shield or a healing spell, you probably want to run this augment if you're using the Blue Tree. At level 10, you get 35 defense for 30 seconds every 15 seconds, which is honestly the power an augment should have. Just a note, Embolden does get triggered from Quench, So if you want the extra defense at a particular point in a fight, you can always hit an animal. This is an A tier augment. Cavalcade is next. This augment is what you want to use if you do not have a shield or healing spell. This augment is pretty much a better stopping power. This reduces the damage taken by 3%, multiplied by the number of players around you, including you, in a 5-meter radius. So at a minimum, you get 3% damage reduction when fighting animals, which is the opposite of what stopping power gives you. If you're fighting someone, you get 6% damage reduction, which at this point is a better stopping power. This augment is definitely better in team modes because you get more damage reduction around your team as well. This is an A tier perk, at least in solos. The next augment is Steadfast. This perk is nice against enemies with an immobilization ability, but honestly running Cavalcade is better in most situations because it works on everyone. You take 10% less damage when immobilized versus at least 6% less damage the entire time fighting someone. This is a B tier augment. Dulled Blades is next. This augment is really situational as it only works against characters that build critical strike, and that is not even half the cast. This augment only lasts for 5 seconds and has a 10% cooldown. It does reduce critical strikes by 7.5%, which does reduce the damage more than an auto attack because critical strikes do 160% damage, excluding critical strike damage items. If there are a lot of characters building critical strike in your lobby, this augment is fine, but otherwise I would place this augment in B tier. Last of the Fortification augments is Reinforced Armor. This is an A tier augment, but you have to make a build around it to work. This increases damage reduction stats by 30%, excluding defense. So if you're building Battlesuit, I would run this augment because Battlesuit is the best piece to use this augment on since it has 3 damage reduction stats: critical strike damage reduction, skill amp damage reduction, and extra basic attack damage reduction. Ideally, you should have 2 pieces with damage reduction stats, such as the Amazonas and Helm of Manaret, to use this effectively. The first core augment we'll look at is Healing Factor. This augment is not that bad, but can really only be used with characters that build a lot of skill amp. This is not a bad choice on Sylvia, Lennox, and Emma, but Vampiric Bloodline is better in terms of healing and damage for most of these characters unless you have really good AP ratios. I may be underestimating this augment, but I'm going to put this in A tier. Healing Drone is next. The healing you receive is really nice if you want to restart a fight and your character's weakness is HP and not damage. This probably is fine for you, but it's not super strong, which is why it is going in A tier. The last core augment is Amplification Drone. This augment is good on most of the cast, but is honestly broken on really strong characters like Jukai and Nadine. The amount of spell amp you can get can make you finish someone a lot faster, and they cannot run away from you. This is definitely an S tier augment. The first support augment is Thorn Shackles. This is not a bad augment if you have good tools to immobilize your opponent. I have seen this augment run on Adriana as an example. Taking 7% more damage from all sources for 5 seconds on a 20-second cooldown is not bad. This is an A tier augment. Assembly is next. This augment is really not good in solos. At level 10, you can absorb 150 damage from your shield after your ultimate. Most of the cast with a shield built in their kit absorbs a lot more damage than this. This augment is really a team's augment, which is why it's going in B tier. The next augment is Logistics. This augment is better in team modes as well, but really only nice if you are new to the game and do not know how to make food. If you're struggling with food, I've checked out my basics to food guide after this. In solos, you get 2 healing potions every night. Blue crates at this time really only drop food, and most of the food is 700 HP. This is a C tier augment. Theia is next. This augment is probably one of the most balanced augments as it has its uses but not overpowered. If you're a character that can poke from long ranges, such as Adriana, Sniper Aya, and Adela, this augment is not bad. These characters generally struggle at nighttime, and this augment can help remove this weakness. This is an A tier augment. The last augment that is currently out is Urban Warfare. This is the worst augment in the game, in my opinion. This only is good if you're building a lot of traps, such as ISIL, and you also need to hope your opponent builds traps to trigger the second half of this augment. 10% AP is not that much overall, and with ISIL you generally keep your traps for late game, in which you can just use Vengeance, which does the same thing but lasts the whole end game. This is a C tier augment. Okay, now I'm going to put the augments in order in the respective tiers, with the best in that tier being on the left and the worst of that tier being on the right. Please keep in mind though, if an augment is on the right side of their tier, it does not mean they are bad, unless it is a C tier augment of course. It just means that there are augments that are slightly better than them, but that they still all belong in the same tier. If you like this video, please give this a like and subscribe if you like Eternal Return as much as I do. If you think I am wrong about the strength of a particular augment, let me know in the comments. I hope to see you at the next video.